All right, folks, welcome back to Dirty Boots Capital. I am your host, Tony Lopes, and we have an amazing guest with us today, Scott Smith. Scott is an attorney. He's also CEO of Royal Legal Solutions. And so we are going to be talking about some legal stuff. How to protect your assets. We're going to be talking about real estate. We're also going to be talking about growing your financial freedom. So we're going to be talking about a lot of different things. Scott here is a super smart guy. He's done a lot in his lifetime, and I'm truly grateful to have him on the show today. So Scott, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, my pleasure to be here, Tony. Thank you.
Yeah, this is going to be a fun conversation. So why don't we first start? Why don't you share with the audience, with the listeners, a little bit about yourself, how you personally gained financial freedom in your life?
Yeah, so I actually started my very first business pushing lawnmowers in Houston, Texas growing up and started saving money. Didn't really know what for, but I just knew it was important to save money. My very first piece of real estate was a commercial building that I bought while I was in law school. And I bought it for $10,000 in back taxes, and it also included all this equipment for doing car repair work. Me and a business partner, we ended up rehabbing the building and rehabbing that business and flipped it to graduate from law school without debt. And I continued to invest in real estate after I was starting to practice in litigation, suing insurance companies. Turns out insurance companies are great at collecting premiums and even better at denying coverage when things get expensive. So we'd sue them on that firm. But my real money was coming from real estate until eventually I was making more money in real estate than I was being an attorney, and I quit being an attorney. And that's when I got to start doing all the fun stuff in my life as I was having the passive income from my real estate kick in. I was climbing Mount Kilimanjaro, lived for months in the Amazon, backpacked around Europe for 3 months, and was doing all this great stuff until I realized that I was like, oh, well, I'm actually still getting sucked back in to managing my wealth quite a bit, having to plan for like my tax strategy and like my financials for the year. A friend of mine at one point got sued, and he was really well insured. He had a big old umbrella policy, but he got sued for $3 million based upon an email that he had sent somebody, and he lost, and it wiped out his portfolio. And he was the guy that was teaching me about real estate. And that's when I got really serious about asset protection as well, because I said, wow, it's important to build wealth, but it's also to make sure that it's durable. So that way, when I'm out of the game, I can stay out of the game. So Royal Legal Solutions, my company, just became the natural extension of all of the things that I do for myself, and just help other people that want to have the same type of durable wealth journey and lifestyle that I have.
Yeah, that's a amazing story, Scott. I love the fact that you got into real estate in a very different way than most of us. Most of us find our property on MLS, or maybe we buy it off market. But you actually got it through purchasing it via back taxes that were owned on the property. So, we don't have to go into it because we have so many other things to cover. But just for the audience, for the listeners, there's a lot of different ways to get into real estate. And as Scott shared, he got into real estate by paying off the $10,000 worth of back taxes on that commercial property. There was some value add to do, which I'm sure he spent some money on. But depending on how your strategy is set up, it's not like you need hundreds of thousands of dollars all the time to be able to do some of these things. I've purchased foreclosed properties for $50,000. There's a lot of different ways to get into the real estate game. So Scott, thank you for sharing your story. And I also appreciate, how you shared financial freedom aspect of things. Obviously, we have to make money in our business and in our real estate, and making money is an important component of the business. Otherwise, we have no business. But it's really about freedom, setting up freedom for ourselves, giving us the financial means to be able to do what we want, when we want, because we want. And in your case, it was climbing Kilimanjaro and doing all sorts of other fun things. And that's great. And even now, an extension of what you do, having your company, right, to be able to help educate and help people. You have fun. I can just chatting with you. I know you have fun doing these sort of things. Sure, we have to make money in the business, but you are passionate about being an educator. And that's why I'm so grateful to have you on today. Let's talk a little bit about asset protection, because a lot of the viewers here, they are in real estate, or some sort of, they have wealth. So in terms of safeguarding your properties, you talk a lot about safeguarding your properties from lawsuits and asset protection. How do we do that?
Yeah, asset protection is important because in this country, If you own assets in your personal name, you can end up just like my friend did, be totally wiped out from a single lawsuit. And a lot of people ask me, well, when is the right time to get asset protection? I tell them it's when you know you'd cry. Would you cry if you lost it? And if you
Yeah.
would, then it's the right time to protect it. If you don't care, then why do it?
Yeah,
And so,
so we were talking just a little bit before hitting the record button. We talked about a little bit about LLCs, and there's a bunch of different ways to provide asset protection. But if you can kind of help us understand some different ways to protect our assets, like are LLCs the be all end all in terms of asset protection?
yeah, what you really need is actually two different companies. You need one company that owns all of your assets and doesn't do anything. And then you need a separate company that does everything and doesn't do anything. So we call that second company the operating company, and the first company that owns everything an asset holding company. And the asset holding company can be a number of different company structures. It can be LLCs, series LLCs, could be Delaware statutory trusts, could be types of irrevocable trusts. It really all depends on the type of asset, where that asset is located to make sure that it has the best protection, has anonymity, and it's streamlined for tax purposes or maintenance purposes.
Anonymity. How important is anonymity in asset protection?
So what you have to understand is that lawsuits are a business. It's a business in which some attorney is out there investigating you to say, if I spend $50,000 to come after and sue you, can I take your stuff? And if I can, how much stuff can I take? So a lawsuit itself is worthless unless there's stuff to take. So anonymity becomes important, not just for privacy purposes, because it's a little creepy that people can find out what you own by just searching government records, but also because you want it to look like if anybody comes searching to say, this isn't a good person to sue. It's too risky to spend this amount of money to come sue. Now, your anonymity will get you that far. And in most cases, it'll stop the lawsuits before they start. But what you need is you need compartmentalization of your assets using a series LLC, individual LLCs, or Delaware statutory trusts. So that way, if they sue, that you only lose one property, or you may lose nothing at all, depending upon that lawsuit. And that way, your anonymity stops the lawsuit before it starts. The compartmentalization of your assets inside of the appropriate asset holding company makes sure that any losses that you have are minimal.
Mm, okay. So you need an operating company and then you need a holding company that actually owns the operating company. Is that
Does
correct?
not own it. Two totally separate companies. So your
Oh,
asset
okay.
holding company is a completely separate company that's not owned by anything other than perhaps like your living trust as part of your estate plan, right? Your operating company floats out on its own island. And the reason why is because that operating company is the one we're setting up as the fall guy. We want it to be the one that gets sued. It's the one that's signing the lease agreements, it's hiring contractors, it's doing all of the businesses in the outside world for sending emails, text messages, whatever the case may be. Why? It's because it's activities that are the basis for lawsuits. Something has to happen for a lawsuit to occur. So we want all of the happenings to occur in a company that's completely separate and isolated that doesn't own anything. That way, if a lawsuit happens, we simply shut down that company and start up a new one. Your asset holding company, on the other hand, doesn't have any happenings. It's just merely holding the assets. It's not talking to anybody. It's not signing any contracts. It's not doing anything.
Mm.
And so that way, if you're sued, you don't own anything. Remember, rich people don't own things. They have companies that own things. Rich people just control things. They sue you, you don't own anything. Why don't you own anything? Because your asset holding company is the one that owns everything. This is called having good charging order protection with a type of entity you set up. You must have charging order protection. A lot of people don't know about that. You have to have charging order protection. If somebody sues you, you don't have charging order protection, they can take your company. If somebody sues, let's say, one of the assets on your company because grandma falls through the staircase on one of your properties, the compartmentalization of the assets inside of your asset holding company through individual LLCs or individual child series of a series LLC or
Mm.
child series of a DST makes it where they can only take that one asset. They can't take any of their other assets. So that way, your maximum loss is that they sue you, they can't get any of your money. If they have a lawsuit against the property itself because they actually got injured on the property, the most you can lose is that one property. They can't touch any of your other properties. They can't touch your bank account. They can't touch your brokerage account or anything else that's protected underneath that asset holding company.
So for folks who are saying purchasing a new property, this is pretty straightforward, easy to set up because you're doing this from the get-go, from the purchase of that property. What about people who already have property that maybe don't have it structured correctly, is with all these layers? Is it still possible to achieve what you're talking about in terms of asset protection?
Yeah, I'd say only maybe about 5% of our clients are people that are starting from the very beginning. 95% of people have some type of existing structure, some type of existing business that's going on that needs to be restructured. And yeah, everything is able to be corrected to be able to create all the appropriate anonymity in place, to create all the appropriate compartmentalization, to help with like the flow of business between an operating company and asset holding company, and how the bank accounts and the bookkeeping and all that needs to work is all part of the setup process on the education that happens along with the building process.
Yeah, it's so important for the folks out there to clearly understand this. Spend a little bit of money to structure your assets correctly, because you have so much to lose if you do have a lawsuit brought against you. I know folks who like to go to the city hall and pull their own LLC, and sometimes all they do is pull an LLC name. They don't even create an operating agreement for that LLC, and they certainly don't have a holding company. And there's a lot of errors that are made along the way. So it's certainly worthwhile to have a conversation with super smart guy Scott Smith here, and that's why we're so grateful to have him on to be able to walk us through these strategies for asset protection, and really be a vehicle, for us to each and every one of us personally be able to reach out to and say, "Hey, I saw you on that podcast. I'm not set up completely correct. It's great that, 95% of your clients are just like me and don't have it set up correctly. I need help." So this is what we like to do. This is what I like to do. I know Scott likes to do. This is the education piece. We want to educate people. We want to protect people. We want to encourage people just because they may not know all the right things to do and how to do them. We don't want them to go to figure out how to set up their own LLC and they're holding. Go to somebody who knows the rules and how to do it already. Go to somebody like Scott to be able to figure this out. One of the things I get as I do coaching and as I talk to others within the real estate space, some folks, this would work incredibly well if you're just a passive investor and you don't materially participate in your business. But there are a lot of folks that like to participate in their business. There's folks who actually like to deal with tenants, do the showings, maintain the property, whether it's installing a new dishwasher or fixing a light switch, right? There's people who like to materially participate or be active in the management of their property. What do you say to those people? How do they protect themselves in terms of this asset protection, the structure? How do they do it?
The exact same thing. You just simply run the leases through the operating company. Title to the property is held inside of your asset holding company, and that's it. The tenants cut the check to the operating company. Any contracts or contractors all go through the operating company. It's super effective. I mean, we have about a lawsuit a month we defend. Like, for example, we recently had a client that was doing flipping, and inside of the sale of the property, there were some email exchanges back and forth about like what plumbing underneath the house had been replaced, or whether all the plumbing in the house had been replaced. It's a little ambiguous from the emails. In any event, there was a leak in the second story. It cost $75,000 in damages because the new owners were on vacation at the time. Net result was they said, "Well, we're going to sue you." I said, "That's great. How are you going to do that?" Because if you sue us based upon, any of the contracts or the communications, those all went through the operating company. So that company doesn't know anything. If you try to sue it on the entity that sold you the asset, well, that was a child series of the series LLC that was set up for the client. It only owned that one asset. Whenever it took the cash in from the distribution of that asset, it's already been distributed. So if you sue that entity, it's nothing there to take. Well, that's right. The net result was the lawsuit got dropped. And it's a $75,000 lawsuit. Would have survived all the way to a jury trial because it had been a question about, okay, what was the representations that were made? And so as you can see from this example, is that it doesn't really matter what the facts are. This is what's important. This is what good lawyering is supposed to be. Good lawyering is supposed to be able to make it where we use the legal system to our maximum advantage. And if we decide we want to do something else, you can always decide you want to do something else. But you always have the maximum protections in place to make sure that you're using the laws that are there to your maximum advantage, including all the tax laws, because taxes are actually the number one investment. Any dollar you invest in saving money on tax will be your best performing investment. It's the only guaranteed investment that you can have, as saving money from the government, because otherwise you're going to be paying it every year. And so your entity structure, as well as tax saving vehicles and tax structures, all work together to protect you from liability and save you money from the government. And all that extra money that you have now, you put that into deals with Dirty Boots Capital or with other groups. And this is how you accelerate your path to financial freedom. Systems and processes to streamline your time. You use the extra time to vet better deals, generate more capital. You save money on taxes. So you have more capital from all the money you saved on taxes. Because you can invest more capital inside of the new investments that are coming up. This is the number one way to be able to take your timeline of financial freedom to from 10 to 15 years down to 3 to 5.
Yeah, I can just imagine there's some folks out there, when we share this sort of information, they just become so saturated with all this information that they're now paralyzed because they feel like they have to take it on all themselves. And so, obviously you're an attorney, you talked about tax strategies, which, then pulls in your CPA to support that. Tell me a little bit. You have a strategy and you talk about setting up your dream investment team. Let's talk about that a little bit. What do you mean by dream investment team?
A lot of people don't realize when they start investing is that what they're actually doing and why it's so hard is because they're actually building a wealth building company, but they're doing it as like a solo entrepreneur. And they say, why is this investing stuff so hard? It's like, because you're building a company, baby,
Yeah.
but you've never built a company before. And you don't really understand the company you're building because the company that you're building requires legal knowledge. It requires tax knowledge. It requires financial, like CFO type knowledge to be able to plan for what's going to happen with your cash flows and distributions from your investments. And it also requires some type of product called an investment, which is what we also say is a deal pipeline. Where are you going to place the money? Well, these are all of the elements of an investment company. And those are all of the things that every investor has to create for themselves. The problem you're running into, the reason that you've been struggling is because you're trying to manufacture all of the hiring on your own. Hiring for a business is the most difficult thing to do, right? Are you experienced in building teams? Are you experienced in hiring? Do you even know what it is that you're actually looking for? And that's why I built Royal Legal Solutions. I said, great, I have a pre-built team of the experts that help me manage all of my wealth and the same systems and processes that I use. And then each client that comes in, we can typically set up everything for them from all of the attorneys, the paralegals, the CPAs, the CFOs, the investment strategists, do it all inside of 6 weeks. And then the client just simply comes to quarterly meetings to be able to be the CEO of their own wealth building company that we build and manage for them with a team that I know is great, that are also all investors that make money the same way our clients make money. And in this way, this is how you accelerate past all of the problems of trying to just go out in the world and put together random people that maybe have a title, but really it's so much more than that's really needed.
Yeah, for sure. There's so many people who try to do it all themselves, and it's hard. It's hard to find the time to do it all yourself. It's hard to get yourself educated as quickly as you can in some of these aspects. It's just so much easier
Well,
building
Tony,
that.
it took me 6 years studying
Mm.
it full time to figure out how to pull it all together and what were the right professionals, what were the systems and processes, what was the meeting schedule need to look like, what was the reports, and what were the tools that were needed. 6 years full time while I was still helping other people to really dial it in.
Yeah.
And so it's like, man, you can take my 6 years and get it done in 6 weeks.
Right, and it's same on my end. I've been doing multifamily residential investments for the last 15 years. I think I have a little bit to share there.
Right.
Certainly had some good successes, but also had some learning along the way. And if I can prevent some catastrophes or some so to speak some learning experiences away for some of those people along the way, I would certainly be glad to do that, just like yourself, in terms of educating people, avoiding those landmines that are out there, because I'm sure you've stepped on some landmines just like I've stepped on some landmines, and that's important learning, but we don't want those that come behind us to experience that same pain. So super important to, like Scott is saying, build your dream investment team. Do it the right way. Rely on others, trust in others, create those relationships to be able to really pull together a super stellar team. One thing that's coming up a lot these days, I'm going to jump to another topic in real estate. A lot of folks feel like the stock market is at its top. Assets in the stock market are overvalued, and they're feeling like they, should take some of that investment, so to speak, from their retirement account, whether they have a self-directed IRA or some of the vehicles. Some of their retirement accounts are very heavy in terms of being in the stock market. And so they're thinking about harvesting some of that out of the stock market and putting it into real estate. So, if you could help us understand how people transition some of their retirement dollars into real estate versus saying being in the stock market, how do they invest in real estate with their retirement account?
Yeah, so typically what you're looking for is like ex-employer type retirement accounts. And you're rolling them all together in some type of like a self-directed IRA or a solo 401k. I really like solo 401ks because I don't have to pay custodian fees on top of everything else. So it's like a little bit cheaper in terms of run costs. And then it's just simply like placing the investments. Typically in retirement accounts, any retirement account I have, I'm looking for like deals that are going to give me, high cash flow or high appreciation, benefits. Like I place like deals that I think are going to be like home run deals
Mhm.
in there, but are going to give me a bunch of cash. And then I will place any deals that give me lots of depreciation benefits inside of like my personal name or inside of like my companies that flow up to me personally. And so those depreciation types investments are the ones that are going to help me pay zero tax each year there. And my retirement funds, placing those in my solo 401k or self-directed IRA with typically in a syndication that has high cash flow kind of investment. It's really simple. It's really easy. Doesn't cost much to set up, maybe like $1,500 or so to get the whole thing built. And then I'm not paying any taxes on my gains that came from my investing through my retirement accounts, and almost always better investing inside of the right kinds of deals in real estate than the stock market. If you're investing with everybody else in the world, then all of the profit gets eaten away because everybody is all competing over the exact same pie. So learning about real estate and finding the right deal operators, using your retirement accounts is how you can save money on taxes and get gains that are 2 to 3x what people are getting inside of the stock market.
Yeah, and saving those tax dollars instead of paying them to Uncle Sam, you get to keep them yourself, which is one of the huge benefits of being in real estate because the older you get, chances are the wealthier you become, the more income you generate as you get older. That's kind of pretty obvious. But also, if not done correctly, your taxes also go up. And so that's not a situation that we really want for people. We want to be able to give people an opportunity to reduce their taxes and, if possible, pay zero taxes each and every year. But as you're saying, there's a way to do it. There's a system. It needs to be set up. It needs to be strategically thought about. So it's not just something like you think of one day and you say, "Oh, okay, I'm going to have this done by the end of the week or the end of the month." No, this is a strategy. This is something we all need help. I need help, and I seek out the help to be able to do this because I'm not the expert. And the laws and the systems are constantly changing. There's new rules. There's just so many other things we haven't even discussed here, like 1031 exchanges, like kind exchanges, which can help, eliminate taxes on your profits when you sell. There's so many different strategies. And so why go off and try to figure that out on your own versus reaching out to somebody like Scott Smith, who's obviously super smart in this field. So we could talk about a lot of different things here, Scott. But for folks who are seeking that information, that education, that help, how can folks reach out to you, Scott?
Yeah, best thing to do is just go to royallegalsolutions.com. A couple of cool things there. You'll see like in the top right hand corner of the page, there'll be something called the Vault. It has like 11 ebooks, couple hundred hours of videos inside of free courses. That's all about asset protection, estate planning, tax. Basically, a look under the hood of everything that we use to train our staff and to teach on. There's also a video on the homepage that gives you a look of like, here's everything that you actually need to build a wealth building company, right? What Royal Legal Solutions offers is a turnkey solution with pre-built teams and everything else. But if you watch that video, you'll at least know that here's everything that you actually need to have in front of your face about like, what do I need to build to be able to have long-term durable wealth that's going to outperform what everybody else is doing out there. 99% of the people don't know how to build it right. And then what you're going to see there too is a scheduling link. So if it makes sense to have a conversation to say, hey, what resources should I be reviewing? Or is this the right kind of thing for me? Then that's the best place to be able to meet with the team. It's like a 15-minute discovery call. Make sure that you're somebody that we can help hit a home run for. We only take on about 10 clients a month. So we're very selective with the kinds of people that we're willing to work with because the promises that we make to you are amazing promises, right? So we want to
Yeah.
make sure that those are you're the right type of person with the right type of financials and situation to say that we're going to hit a home run for it. And you can also review all of the videos that are underneath there of all the videos from our clients. So you can see that this is all real stuff that we've been doing for over 10 years, for over 2,000 clients in all 50 states. So that's really the best thing to do is just go to royallegalsolutions.com and watch that video, sign up for a call, review some of the testimonials from the clients so you can know that it's real. And if you really want to nerd out, go into the vault in the top right hand corner of the page, and you can watch videos and read articles until your head explodes, and you can become basically an attorney and a CPA after that.
I love this because you know, I love the value that you give away for free. I mean, this is value that people would pay thousands of dollars for, and you just put it out there on your website for free. So we appreciate that. I do hope and I do encourage the viewers and the listeners to go seek that out. We're gonna put that website here at the bottom here, and I'm also gonna put it in the description with the show notes. So we'll make sure that's flagged so people can go get that help and that education and reach out to you if there's more they want to do there. So, Scott, thank you so much for your time today. Truly appreciate you educating us and helping us. So thank you for your time today. We loved it. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Great to be here.